All right, welcome everybody. This is Dave DeBow, and in just a few minutes, we're going to get started with our special presentation tonight with our guest presenter, Stefan Aarnio, talking about hard times create strong men. So welcome on board. We got lots of people coming on here. Stefan, you're calling in all the way from wonderful Winnipeg. I'm here in cool old Kamloops. How you doing, my friend?
Doing quite well. It's a beautiful day in Winnipeg and the snow's melting, so I'm very happy about that. Winnipeg is bipolar at this time of the year. You get a snowstorm, then you get a summer day the next day, then you get another snowstorm, then a summer day. So you never know what you're going to get.
Most definitely. So welcome on board, everybody. Tim Berry saying sunny and warm in Red Deer. Good to hear it, Tim. Good to see you. So go ahead, you guys. Let's get some practice with the Q&A box, because this, I can guarantee you one thing. I'm sure that some of what Stefan's going to say and share here on the call tonight is going to offend some people. It's going to raise some eyebrows. It's going to get us thinking. It's going to perhaps scare the shit out of you. Bottom line is, I can guarantee one thing: it's not going to be dull. So we're going to encourage people for Q&A. We're going to go through this. It's a relatively short presentation, but we're opening it up for a lot of interaction. So feel free. Let's get started. Just go ahead, type in where you're calling in from and how things are looking out your window today. So again, we got Tim from sunny and warm in Red Deer. You got myself from sunny and pretty darn warm here in Kamloops, BC. And Aaron, all sorts of Red Deerians. So Aaron from Red Deer, welcome Aaron. Rick from Whitecourt, we've got all sorts of folks from Alberta. Let's see, Black Card office in Winnipeg. All right, so 5 degrees in Toronto. Hey, Jamie, good to see you, my friend. Go ahead, you guys. Type in where you're calling in from. What's it looking like outside your window? Katie from Ottawa. Brian from St. Albert. Sunny, warm, and water is running in Lloydminster. Hey, Greg, good to see you. Kathy from Redcliffe. Suzanne from beautiful Kingston. All right, we got lots of people coming on board here, you guys. What else we've got? Barbara from Hamilton. Flowers are out, tenants are paying. That's good, Barbara. I'm glad to hear it. Sergio from GTA. Awesome, you guys. Okay. Welcome on to the call. My name's Dave DeBow. The title of our presentation tonight is Hard Times Create Strong Men, which is a book that was written by my good friend Stefan Aarnio. Stefan is our special guest presenter here tonight. And Stefan, I've got by my clock that we're at the top of the hour, so let's get at her and let's start the presentation, buddy. So yeah, let me do a little introduction of you, and then you can fill in the blanks on what I've missed. So I've known Stefan since before Stefan Aarnio was the Stefan Aarnio that you know today. So I had the pleasure of meeting Stefan, I think, back in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. He was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, I think 19-year-old or something like that, young guy. I can still remember meeting him. He was volunteering to help out at a fast track event, I believe probably in Winnipeg. And I could just remember this very, very keen young man who wasn't shy, who came up. He was asking questions. He was outgoing. It was hard to miss because he's about, well, I'm 5'8", and it seems like Stefan's about 7'9", probably not quite that tall, but compared to me, definitely a tall guy. But I just remember the initial impression was, wow, this is a sharp kid. This young guy is going to go places. Little did I know how far he was going to go. So we got to know each other. We got to know each other quite well through Fast Track, and then we kept in touch over the years. And it was fascinating to watch Stefan's trajectory, because he went from, being a newbie real estate investor struggling around, partnering up with a couple other guys to do some little deal here and there, and then learning more about it and just about sinking and then becoming successful and then just taking off in Winnipeg with flipping. And he turned that into an absolute monster of a business. I can't remember, I mean, 40 plus flips a year in a city the size of Winnipeg. He became definitely the number one guy in that town for flipping. Then he started teaching and training people all across North America and has become a celebrity in his own right. He's very, very well known on social media, very, very successful as an entrepreneur, a real estate entrepreneur, and as a trainer and coach and a teacher. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to my friend, Stefan Aarnio.
Wow, Dave, that was a great intro. Thank you very much. My name is Stefan Aarnio, and I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. And, you know, I know that a lot of you guys on the call, guys and girls, are interested in real estate investing, and you're here to, you know, make money in real estate, or maybe keep your money in real estate right now with the hard times going on. And it's a little bit of a leap in the mind to talk about my book, Hard Times Create Strong Men, and how that benefits real estate investors. But I promise you guys tonight, we're going to be looking at the big picture of the world today, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the cultures, what's going on in the banking and the gold and some of these bigger ideas, and how you can profit as a real estate investor off these hard times. Because right now we're going into 20 years of difficulty. This is going to be a 20-year cycle coming up of hard times. The coronavirus has been, you know, a catalyst to set that off. And I predicted the 2020 chaos in my book, Hard Times, which was written in 2017. So we're going to look at the big picture here first with hard times in the world, culture, a little bit about men, what's happening to the men in the culture, a little bit about what's happening in banking, gold, oil, war. And then we're going to transition into how can you benefit from that? Because I know that so many of you guys are business owners, so many of you guys are real estate investors, and you always got to answer the question, what's in it for me? So I promise you, you're going to get some value today. Now, I love this quote by Robert Kiyosaki, and, you know, if you're at home taking notes, I encourage you to grab a pen and paper. You're going to remember 70% of what you write down, but if you just sit there and listen, you're going to remember 10 to 20%. So I love this quote by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He says, I'm rich today because I spent money when I had no money, and I spent time when I had no time. And some of you guys on the call might be new, just starting out. Some of you guys and girls might be seasoned investors with big portfolios. Some of you guys might be somewhere in the middle. But at the end of the day, the thing that really makes the difference is your effort, your energy, your spirit that you put into your business and into your prosperity. And I love, there was a quote I read in a little book called Starship Troopers by Robert A. Heinlein, and he says, the things in life that are worth more than money must be bought with things more valuable than money, and that's life itself. And when you guys invest your life into this real estate investing, when you invest your life into the study of history and understanding cycles and markets, I guarantee you, you'll be able to see the future. You'll be able to see the trends that are coming. And, you know, when the COVID virus hit a little bit ago, it hasn't affected my business. We switched to e-commerce and online 4 years ago. It was a very expensive switch. We have not been affected. I have not laid anyone off. My rentals are fine. Everything in my life is fine because I've been preparing for this for years. And if you're somebody who wants to see the future, you need to invest your time, your money, and your life into being able to see the future. And I guarantee you, if you're an investor, it's worth it to see the future. Now, Dave gave a great intro. I'm going to blow through this super fast. Stefan Aarnio is an award-winning real estate investor. award-winning entrepreneur, published author of 8 books, real estate mentor and coach. Now, this is something I never wanted to do, ladies and gents, but after winning many awards and writing many books and being featured in magazines, the demand for my coaching services went through the roof. So, as an entrepreneur, when there's demand, you must supply. And today we have a coaching company called Black Card University. We coach some of the most elite students in the country. My top student takes home $1 million. He just bought a plane. He just bought 100 units in Ontario, and he's 25 years old. I've got other students who bought $25 million of real estate in Ontario this year. I've got students who flip luxury houses to the Winnipeg Jets. I've got students who flip 30, 40, 50 houses a year. I've got students making 200, 300, 400,000 a year. And we home grow all these students. So we have probably the best coaching company in Canada, and maybe Canada and the US. I haven't seen a better one with better results. When I was flipping houses, I hired a coach, and I did one deal my first year, one deal my second year. Then I went and did 12 deals, then 24 deals a year, 30 deals a year, 40 deals, and then we got up to 50. And that ended up being about 25% of my local niche. So as Dave said, if you want to learn to dominate a market, I'm a guy to talk to. Now, as far as hard times create strong men goes, some of you guys are sitting there and saying, well, what does that have to do with real estate? Well, right now, hard times has everything to do with real estate because we've got the COVID-19 lockdown. The world is never going to be the same. This is a 2001 9/11 situation. This is a war situation. We're going to see probably some governments collapse. We're going to see probably some currencies collapse. This is a mega, mega problem. Now, the reason why I wrote Hard Times was I've always written real estate books and business books, but I was in the jungle for 18 days fasting, and I came home to my office. I had 8 employees at the time. This was some years ago. And the young boys in my office, salesmen 20 years old, 21, 22, had a mutiny. They revolted against me, and they said, I don't like you. You're mean. You make me feel like shit. This isn't my dream. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go traveling. And the complaints from these young men who should have been, fighting men that could have stormed the beaches in Normandy 80 years ago were the complaints of, a 14 or 15-year-old girls volleyball team. And I couldn't figure out where these complaints were coming from. So I sat the boys down and I had a 3-hour lecture about how to be a man. And the next day I had a 3-hour lecture with them. And what I learned was these boys never had fathers. Now, stay with me for a minute because you're probably saying, what does this have to do with real estate and money? I want to make money. So the boys never had fathers. And when I was done the talk, 6-hour talk, I went home to my condo and I wrote the book, Hard Times Create Strong Men in 11 Days. And it's what is a man in money, sex, religion, and politics. And a lot of the content I'm going to give you today about cycles of history, war, gold, oil are coming from that book, Hard Times. And this is the book or the talk that a father should have given his son in the garage, away from his wife and away from his daughter. It's a man-to-man talk, and it's about the brutal reality of the world. And so today we're going to be talking about that a little bit. And this book has actually taken off. It's actually my bestseller. I've been getting 5-figure royalty checks every month for the last 6 months. It's a huge, huge success. And people find it to be a success because it's true. The things I say are true. They might piss you off. And if you get pissed off tonight, that's great because the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. So what I ended up finding was the men have become weak in this culture because they never had fathers. And their fathers never had fathers. And I started going down the rabbit hole and digging. And when the men become weak in the civilization, it's an indicator of the collapse of a civilization. And some of you guys might look at my title, Hard Times Create Strong Men, and you might say, why not strong women or strong people? And that's kind of a funny question, because right now we live in a time, or we did at least 6 months ago, where it was LGBTQ, LMNOP, include everybody, equality, women can do everything men can do, all these, politically correct statements. And the answer is, it's not women, because the culture of a civilization is born with the men and it dies with the men. And that's something to write down on your notepad at home, is culture is born with the men and dies with the men. And right now, the male culture in the Western world is so destroyed. We have several generations of men who never had a father. They never had a male mentor. They were raised by a feminine mother and a feminine teacher, and they don't know how to be men. They don't know how to fight. If we have a war, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to change a tire. They don't know how to fire a gun. They don't know how to do anything. And so this is the indicator of the end of a civilization. Strong people, again, the women join the culture that the men make. When a civilization is established, the men go into the forest, the wilderness, and they plow down some trees and they fight the bears, and they kill their enemies, and then they set up camp. And once it's safe, the women come into the culture and join whatever culture was built. So again, it's the men who build the culture, and it's the men, when the culture is dying, who are dead, incapacitated, or weak. And that means the end of civilization, or at least our civilization, because the men are too weak to keep that culture going. Now, I have a friend out in Ontario, one of my students. He's bought $25 million of real estate in this last year. And he said to me, Stefan, a lot of people in Ontario don't like you. I've, been to events, and I mention your name and mention I'm coaching with you. There's people who don't even want to see me. There's people who don't want to look at me because I piss them off and I offend them with the truth. But like I said to you guys earlier, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And my student defended me, and he said, Stefan knows his shit. He knows real estate inside and out. And I said to my students, I said, it's not just real estate. I know politics, war, oil, gold, and banking. So today we're going to touch on some of those things, because those 5 things contribute to what's going to happen in real estate. And if you want to know what's going to happen in the real estate market, you got to pay attention to those 5 things, because those 5 things dictate what happens in real estate. So here's the 5 things to study to be a professional and profitable real estate investor these days. Number 1 is power. Power is politics. And some of you guys might say, oh, I'm not political. I don't want to do that. I don't want to hear about politics. I'm not political. We don't talk about that at the dinner table, whatever. And, I posted a quote the other day on Twitter, and it was, if you don't study money and power, you're going to end up under the boot of someone who does. And that's a very real quote right now, because we are going to enter into some violent times. We're at a point in history where, right now I'm at my mother's house healing my liver. And my mother's 63. She's never seen a war. I'm 33. I've never seen a war. And every 80 years, we have a big war. And if you don't understand politics or pay attention to what's happening in politics, especially American politics and world politics, you're going to be in for a lot of surprises as an investor. So I say embrace power, embrace politics, even Canadian politics, which is much more boring than American. You have to get into politics and understand it. I'd even say get active with it. Second thing, money, which is gold. Gold is the only real money on the earth. Everything else is fiat currency. It's fake. And it means that it will collapse one day. The Canadian dollar will collapse one day. The US dollar will collapse one day. The Chinese currency will collapse one day. The euro. Every fiat currency in history has collapsed, except gold has remained constant throughout history. So you have to understand gold, because there's people out there, especially when Bitcoin was coming out, who are saying Bitcoin was the future. Well, you know, Bitcoin during the crash of the markets a couple months ago was not a safe haven like gold, and it was not a store of value, and I would argue it's not even an asset. Number 3, you got to study war and human nature, and those two things go together. Humanity is violent. There's a great essay you can read by a guy named Jack Donovan called Violence is Golden. And he says that violence is the gold standard of the human race. And that's what we all understand. We all understand violence. We understand that if we break into a store and steal some bread and some beer, there's going to be a police officer with a gun ready to be violent with us. We understand that if we go vandalize something, there's going to be a man with a gun. So violence is the gold standard of the human race. And war is an institution. Something to write down is every 20 years there's a war, and every 80 years there's a big war. And we're going to go more into that in a little bit. And war is profitable for some people, and it's devastating for others. So that's something to understand. The next one's banking. Now, banking is where the fake money is. Central banking versus state banking. There's a great book you can read if you don't understand the difference between the two of those, called A History of Central Banking by Stephen Milford. And he was a central banker in South Africa, and he gives a complete history of the central banks in history. And it's a short book. It's an easy book to read. I recommend everybody on this call go out and buy that book. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And I think it's banned, actually. I don't think you can get it very easily, so you're going to have to go online and search around for it a little bit. But you got to understand the banking system, because right now the bankers are printing a huge amount of money, and this is going to impoverish the people, as in us, and it's going to inflate our real estate and our other goods. So that's something that's very important if you're a real estate investor, is what's going on with the central banks. The last one here is oil, the black gold of the earth. And oil is very important because nothing runs without oil. We can't even get food without oil. The food at the grocery store, the Costco, or the Safeway comes in with oil on trucks. Everything takes oil. Even drilling oil takes oil. So oil is the ultimate commodity on the face of the earth. And when the prices go down, Canada becomes very weak. When the prices go up, Canada becomes very strong, because we're an oil economy. And so that's something we're going to have to study too. We're going to go through these in a little more detail. And my book, Hard Times Create Strong Men, talks about this on page 401. There's a little poem I read online, and it said, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And what that is that's an 80-year cycle of history repeating itself. Now, if you're a little bit intelligent, you know that history always repeats itself. There's a reason why Shakespeare is still important. People still read Shakespeare because human nature doesn't change. People still read old Roman texts and old Greek texts because human nature doesn't change. And what happened in Greece and Rome happens in empires of the future, like America or Russia or some of these other big empires. Now, the reason why this is important for you is you can see on the very left here, Hard Times Create Strong Men was in 1940. And that was the time where we had World War II. We had World War II, and the men of that generation were called the greatest generation. They were 10 years old in the Great Depression. They were 20 years old in World War II. Then they came home when they were, let's say, 25, 30, had to build a house with their bare hands. Then they had to sire a family of 4 kids, work in a factory or whatever until they died. And those were the toughest men in history, because hard times did indeed create strong men. If you compare, a World War II guy or a greatest generation to a baby boomer or a Gen Xer or a millennial, there's a huge difference. The efficacy those people have, they know how to fix everything. They know how to save up. They know how to be thrifty. They know all the virtuous good things that we've forgotten. Now, 20 years later is the next generation, the baby boomers. Strong men create good times. And these are the people who grew up in, the 60s. And this was the time of milk and honey in America and Canada. We'd won the war. We were on the gold standard. We had lots of gold. Everything was great. The purchasing power of a family back then was so strong that a man could support 2 kids, 4 kids, and a wife and not be very bright. He didn't need an education or anything. And that's how great that time was. You could have 2 cars, a house, a white picket fence, and it truly was a golden age. Now, in 1980, you got good times create weak men. And this is where we've gone off the gold standard. You got Wall Street coming out, starting to mess with our money. You start having inflation. There's been some bad wars in between the 60s and the 80s. And we've created weakness in our culture, especially weakness in the culture of men. If you look at divorces, those are starting to happen. Feminism's come out and changed the game for families, where suddenly, women want divorces, and that really messes up the family, because a house without a father, statistically, the young daughter will end up sexually promiscuous, perhaps raped, perhaps a prostitute, or some sort of, slut. And with the house without a dad for a young boy, statistically he ends up in jail. So you start seeing this decay of the family. You start seeing decay of culture. You start seeing the men being more weak, having less skills. And then in 2000, we have weak men create hard times. And of course, between 2000 and 2020, we had horrible President George W. Bush, who just did nothing but fight wars. And you had Barack Obama, who doubled the U.S. debt. So this really was a decline here. And we had 2008. You can see that would be somewhere here. And it goes right down to 2020, hard times create strong men. So that's how the book predicted that hard times would create strong men in 2020. Now, some of you guys are saying, oh my God, war, no way. I've never seen a war. I've been alive my whole life. It's never happened. We've evolved past that. We're spiritually past that. And the answer is we're in a war already. This COVID-19, this bioweapon that we're all afraid of right now, I believe is engineered. And I believe it's engineered to do economic damage to the United States and some other countries. So we're already in a war. It just hasn't got kinetic with shooting missiles and things, but we have a biological and financial war going on. And this is the start of a very hard time. Now, as far as how long will COVID-19 last, I heard Justin Trudeau today say it was going to be 12 to 18 months, which I think is wrong, because I don't think the country can sustain that. But, we've got, 1 or 2 months at least of lockdown. And this is already war measures. Donald Trump is putting War Measures Act in, and we are already in a war. So if you're at home and you're in denial saying, oh yeah, this is all fine. No, dude, this is warfare. We've already started. And the thing I'm afraid of is what's going to happen after COVID. Once COVID's done, however long it takes for that to go away. After that, what's going to be next? An EMP strike, terrorism, drone strikes. There's going to be something next. Proxy wars like the Cold War. There's been talk of setting up the digital Iron Curtain, where America is going to take half the world in technology and commerce, and China is going to take the other half in technology and commerce. And we've already got companies like TikTok, which is a Chinese company. You might have that social media app on your phone, or your kids might. That's a Chinese app, and it's siphoning American data over to China, and the U.S. government just banned it for U.S. government workers. So we're into a tech war, we're into a finance war, we're into a biological war. We just haven't shot missiles yet. And here's the thing too. You might say, why would China send this virus over to America? Why would they want to do that? Well, Donald Trump, to end the trade deficit with China, was adding a 25% tariff to Chinese goods. So something to come in from China would cost 25% more to make people buy less. And then he also called home all the factories, the U.S. factories. And that's pretty damaging to a country like China. So, of course, they did some economic damage back and sent over a COVID-19 to do a lot of economic damage through the quarantine. And the question is, how long is that going to last? If it's 1 month, 2 months, not that bad. If it's 12 or 18 months, we're in big trouble. And something to write down right now is that the average person, average Canadian, average American, has 2 weeks of savings. So after 2 weeks, they have no cash. And then they have to dip into their credit cards, lines of credit, home equity, if they have that, which they probably don't. And you got to ask yourself, there's already stealing happening at the stores. There's police at the stores. If this lockdown keeps going and people can't work, how bad is it going to get? And so, there's other countries like Sweden that didn't do a lockdown. They're doing quite well because they did the math of the deaths and they did the math of shutting the economy down. They decided to run the economy. Right now, Trudeau in Canada is just taking on debt, printing debt. And if he thinks he can do that for 12 or 18 months, you could see a collapse of a country because we can't pay that. So there's major implications here, major problems. Now, gold throughout history, this is something that you all need to know. One gold coin has never changed in history, never changed value. If you put a gold coin 1 ounce in the ground, in the earth, bury it, and come 2,000 years later, dig up that gold coin, it's still a gold coin. It doesn't grow. It doesn't have a baby. It doesn't have a yield. So gold is actually a pretty bad investment because it doesn't really do anything. In fact, it costs money to protect and store. So one gold coin in ancient Rome bought a man a toga, a pair of sandals, and a haircut at the market. Today, one gold coin will get a man a finely tailored suit, a haircut, and a fine pair of shoes. So that gold coin is still worth the same amount in today as it was in ancient Rome. Gold never goes up. What goes down is our currency, and that appears that gold is going up. Now, this is very important, and you guys should write these numbers down. In 1968, when we were on the gold standard, the price of gold was $39.31. And minimum wage was $1.25 in the U.S. So it took you 31.45 hours to earn a piece of gold. Now, in 2014, price of gold is $1,264.99. Minimum wage is $7.25, and look what happens. Your labor is worthless, and now it takes 174 hours to get that same piece of gold. And this is why working for money never works. This is why you can't get ahead working for money. This is why the poor and the middle class never get ahead, because they make money, they save money, and the government inflates the money, and the people are no further ahead. I had a McDonald's cheeseburger a couple weeks ago, and it was $2.29. And when I was in grade 8 in 1999, 2000, we could get that burger for 39 cents. So that burger's gone up 600% in the last 20 years. My parents' house that they moved into and bought when I was born in the 90s was 150,000. Today it's 650,000. It's the same house. So it's, again, you know, a 500, 600% increase. So it's become 600% more expensive to live. And the things you can look at is price of gold for an index, cheeseburgers. You know, if you drive by Burger King and it says 2 Whoppers for $5, and then you drive by again, it says 2 Whoppers for $6, and then it says 2 Whoppers for $7, and I think it's 2 Whoppers for $8 now. You know that the economy is inflating because Burger King is the cheapest burger you can buy. And if they have to raise their price, that means that the rock bottom price of ingredients and inflation is happening. So if we extrapolate this out, $31 per ounce of gold in 1968, $1.25 minimum wage. The annual purchasing power in 2018 would have been $103,328 US. So if you think about that, that's a burger flipper. You could have been a burger flipper in the 60s and you had $103,000 of purchasing power. And when you see a guy like Donald Trump put on a hat that says, "Make America Great Again," he's referring to this point in history where the average worker had a huge purchasing power. You could have a house, a car, 2 cars maybe, a stay-at-home wife, 2 kids, white picket fence, and a dog for that money. Nowadays, in 2018, look at the numbers. Extrapolate it out, you're looking at a $13,920 annual wage. So the actual worker in America, the base worker, has lost 90% of his purchasing power. And in 0 states right now, can a person, a human on minimum wage, afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment? So America is starting to have tent cities, tent towns. People are living in their cars in LA. You got feces on the streets, bubonic plague in LA. I was down in Hollywood last year, and I got to walk through the tent towns. I got to see the poo on the streets from the people who could no longer afford to live, and they live in their cars. And it's very sad, guys, because this is something that's only going to get worse. Now in Canada, top 1% earners make $250,000. Top 4% earners make $100,000, and top 5% about $80,000. And something I encourage everybody on this call is get into the top 1% or higher. I really think you should make $300,000 or more, because this is a time where even $300,000 is not much to support a family. If you want to be, let's say, a man with a stay-at-home wife and 2 kids and a house, 300 grand's barely going to do it. And this is a time where you really have to get into that 1%, because if you're not in the 1% or the 4%, you're just going to be wiped out. This is a time where we're going to see the rich and we're going to see the poor, and the middle class is going to completely go away. Some of you guys might notice this at the grocery store, where $20 used to buy you a lot, and now $20 buys you nothing. And I used to stock shelves at Frito-Lay, which was chips, Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos. And what I noticed over the year I worked there was the bag went from 250 grams to 235 grams to 220 to 210, and the prices kept going up with less chips in the bag. So what Frito-Lay would do, the chips company, is give you a bigger bag with less chips and less weight. And then they would keep it the same price or increase the price so that they could hide the inflation. And this is what a lot of grocers are doing now. They inject chicken with salt water to make it heavier. They do all sorts of things to make the inflation seem less bad. But, you know, this is going to continue until the average man can't buy bread. That's something to write down, ladies and gents, is this is going to continue. The inflation is going to continue until the average man can't buy bread. And what you're looking at in front of me here is a picture of the Russian Revolution. And this is where Russia was defeated in World War One. By the way, Russia was one of the most prosperous countries on the earth before World War One. And King Tsar Nicholas II was a great leader. And they got into a war with two central banking companies, Austria and Prussia, and they lost. And the army came home defeated, and the people were starving. They couldn't buy bread. And when they started revolting, Tsar Nicholas II ordered them to shoot the people, and the military ended up sending 8 assassins to kill his 8 family members. And so it was a very violent time when the average man can't buy bread. And then you had the military take over the country for 80 years. You had communism, and you also had the government kill 20 million of its own people. So that's a very, very bad thing. Russia went from being the breadbasket of the earth. They were producing half the grain. Everyone had a house and a farm, and it was a paradise under Tsar Nicholas II. And then they got into a war, and then it turned into an absolute tyranny and a shithole after that. So this is history, guys. This isn't that long ago. That's, 1917, 1918 that started happening. The French Revolution in the 1800s, same thing. The average man couldn't buy bread. So it's very violent, and they ended up with an emperor. In the American Civil War, you had a currency called the Continental that collapsed. And so, you see currency collapse, you got fighting, you got violence, you got blood, you got starvation. And this keeps happening throughout history, guys, because it's human nature. We forget our past, and we do this over and over again. Now, there's a scam alert I want to let you guys know, and this is millions of people worldwide have fallen for the 40-40-40 scam. And the 40-40-40 scam is where you make someone else rich by working 40 hours a week for 40 years and try to retire on 40% of what you couldn't afford to live on in the first place, commonly known as a job. And the job right now, guys, the job, is probably one of the riskiest places you could be. Unless you're working to learn, this is one of the worst places to be because a whole bunch of jobs are getting wiped out. They say 35, 40 million jobs will be wiped out in the U.S. in the next little bit. And we're talking about a country that had almost no unemployment. And suddenly the unemployment's huge. Same with Canada. If you're a waitress in a restaurant right now, or if you're, a guy driving a truck or a guy, doing something non-essential, everybody's at home. And this is a time where you have to learn to be a great real estate investor. You need to learn e-commerce. You need to learn to sell. You need to learn these skills because the job will not support you. And, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, has been saying for years, this is the time in history where you have to have minimum 2 incomes. You need real estate and something else. And I've been working on multiple income streams for years. I mentioned at the beginning of the call, the COVID hasn't affected me very much because I've been preparing for this for years with multiple income streams. And so this is a big time for a lot of people. There's a crossroads. If you have a job, I would say you should be training to get out of a job. You should be trying to find a way to build something so you can get out. There's more opportunity than ever in a lot of ways. A lot of opportunities have shut down. If you had a candle store, you're screwed. If you had a store that sells, spicy little oils for people's dinners, you're screwed. But, if you're an e-commerce store right now, you're just fine. And that's what my company did. We switched to e-commerce and telesales, and we've been just fine. Whereas the other companies out there selling what I sell, real estate training, have all been shut down because they do seminars. So there's a real change in the marketplace. and you got to change with it. There's opportunity, but you have to find it. Now, banking, going back to banking for a minute, here's something that will shock you, and I think you should grab your pen and write this down. All the U.S. presidents in history, 1776 till 2008, took on $10 trillion of debt. Barack Obama, in 8 years, doubled that debt. Trump, through COVID-19, is probably going to have to add another $10 trillion of debt. He's been adding trillions already. And it's really sad because I've criticized Obama about adding, 10 trillion, and he should have let the banks fail through 2008 because of the corruption. But right now, Trump is on a huge ball of debt, and it's a snowball that's out of control. And it's very sad because I think he's actually a pretty decent fiscal president, but this is a very strange, outstanding time, and this debt is going to get out of control. So when the U.S. is taking on trillions of dollars of debt, we have to do it too. Canada has to print. China has to print. Europe has to print to keep trading. Because if America prints, everybody wants to trade with America. So there's this big domino effect all over the world. And the printing makes real estate and other commodities go up, but it makes wages go down. It makes purchasing power go down. And this is where we're getting to the point where, my mother goes to the store to buy groceries right now during COVID. And the question is, will there be bread at the store? And if there's no bread at the store after about 3 days, you got chaos. And so, whether it's inflation that stops the bread, or it's just supply chains breaking down, or COVID-19 or whatever, we're getting into a very messy time. The last one I want to share with you guys is oil. Here's what's going on with oil. $30 per barrel from the Saudis and Putin's fighting. So Putin and the Saudis got into a little fight. Both those are rich, oil-rich nations. They put a straw in the ground, they suck the oil out, and it's cheap. Canada needs $85 a barrel to break even. So this destroys Alberta, and that's Canada's economic engine. That's the province that subsidizes Quebec. That's the province that subsidizes Ontario. And so this is very bad because when oil is 110 a barrel, everybody in Alberta is a genius. The houses are high. The values are high. Everybody's got a big, nice truck. Everybody's smart. And $30 a barrel, guys, is an unheard of price. And this oil, I don't know how long it's going to stay down, but this is very damaging to Canada. So Canada has a whole bunch of things damaging the economy. Justin Trudeau's one with the lockdown. I don't think the lockdown is the right thing. $30 a barrel oil, horrible, horrible thing for Canada. And the question is, how much debt can we print before we collapse? So here's the question a lot of you probably have is, how long will the hard times last? And the answer is 20 years. Write that down. This is going to be 20 years of hard times. And at least 10 of noticeable hard times where it's really bad. And then it's going to kind of trend up for 10 years. So we got 20 years of hard times. And if you want to look at history, it's kind of like the space between, let's say, 2000 and we've got, let's say, between 1930 and 1950, sort of, where we went through the 2008 Great Recession in America. And then we now have that bubble popping. And we're going to have another 10 years of probably hard times to get out of that. So this is a 20-year game. And some of you guys are probably depressed to hear that, or angry. But you got to see the opportunity in it. We're going to have 20 years of assets on sale. We're going to have 20 years for you to position yourself. And remember this, Uber, Airbnb, a lot of these tech companies started in 2008 in the last recession. And so this is the time to get really rich if you're disciplined, if you're educated, if you're somebody who actually is going to ride the ride, this is going to be a great time for you, because the best of times is the worst of times. So this is what you've all been waiting for. Grab your pens, and I've got some tips here. So as an investor, how do you profit from all this chaos and carnage? War, oil, politics, power, banking. How do we do it? First thing is this: you got to get educated. I have people all the time asking me, what should I invest in? My answer is, that's the stupidest question you could ask me. The answer is, invest in yourself, so you don't ask me that stupid question again. Because anybody who asks, what should I invest in, to somebody, that person's going to say, give me your money. And so you have to get educated so you know what's going on in the market, so you know how to buy and sell properties, so you know how to do this properly. There's a lot of people out there who've, invested a little bit in their education, and they think they're experts, and they're going to get slapped right now. There's a lot of people I know. We had a big expert call with Dave some weeks ago. I know a lot of those people are over leveraged. They're going to get slapped. So you have to get educated on how to do this business properly. And a lot of real estate investors, guys, have to spend about $100,000 with different companies before they're very good. And I just know that because I'm in the training business, and everybody I know who's very good and professional has spent about $100,000 with various companies. So write that number down. It's kind of like being a doctor. If you want to be a doctor, you spend $300,000 on your education, you make $300. You want to be a lawyer, you spend $150 on your education, you make $150. You want to be an investor, you spend $100, you make $100 at least. So this is something that's important: is get educated, put some money aside and some time and some life force for that. Second thing is learn to sell. Now, if you're at home unemployed, or if you're somebody who's wanting unlimited income, you have to learn to sell. This is the thing that stops more people than ever. I've coached hundreds and hundreds of people, and the people who learn to sell are the superstars. The people who don't bother are always sideways and stale. So learn to sell, and this is the time to increase your income and production. So, if you're selling before, you're going to go sell more. You're going to go get even harder in the market. You're going to go push harder. You're going to do more calls. If your, let's say, business is wiped out or whatever, you got to go find a new business, new niche, and sell. You could make a killing in toilet paper right now. You can make a killing in hand sanitizer. You can make a killing in masks. Who knows? Maybe you have a medical supply company you open. There's all sorts of stuff going on right now where there's huge opportunities, and people just aren't seeing them because they're thinking about the old opportunities. And the world right now is changing, where the new opportunities are better than ever and the old opportunities are worse than ever. So learn to sell, ladies and gents. There's so many people on this call that avoid that, and that's the reason for your own mediocrity. Number 3, bank up all your cash, sell your liabilities, refinance everything, and stack up the cash. So pull in all the cash, guys. This is time to take on as much property debt as you can, responsibly. Don't take out second mortgages, but first mortgages. Suck out all your equity, stack it up so you can survive the storm. I had 4 or 5 roofs break in 5 months. That was a lot of cash. I make a very high income, so I could pay for it. But most investors will be smashed with 5 roofs breaking. So bank up all your cash, stack it up, and don't do anything with it. Just keep it. Number 4, everything you do and buy right now must cash flow. If it doesn't cash flow, get rid of it. So start looking at your portfolio. Your losers, get rid of them. Just dump them. They're no good to you. Just get rid of the losers. You can't afford to carry them anymore. And then number 5, with your cash, wait until you come across the mega bargains, strategic deals, or I can't say no deals. I just bought a house for $81,000 across the street from one I paid $150 for, and one other one I paid 10 years ago $160 for. So that was a couldn't say no strategic deal. But I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. So stay away from deals for a little bit. Just chill out. Let the market do what it does. people are going to be in big trouble in like a month when they start using credit cards to carry properties. And that's when people are going to start calling your ads, "We buy houses," because they hate paying the bills. And when they don't have cash and don't have a job and don't have a renter and don't have any of that, there will be some big deals coming. So keep your powder dry, keep it ready. Don't blow your load too early here. Wait, and make sure you're economically sound. This is the biggest thing though. Increase your income. That's the safest thing you can do. Get educated, increase your income, and all this other stuff is just defense. Now, I want to share this with you, Dan Locke, my friend, the wealth triangle. He says in life, you want to focus on your high income skill. This is how to sell. Number 2, your high yield investments. This would be your real estate. Number 3, your scalable business, maybe in e-commerce. And the high income skill has to come first. And that's learning to sell, ladies and gents. So I sound like a broken record, say learn to sell, learn to sell, learn to sell, learn to sell. And people are always resisting that. And that's why I keep saying it. But real estate is number 2. And a lot of people right now who jumped into number 2 with no high income skill are going to get wiped out because they don't have the cash from the high income skill to play this game coming up. And I want to show you this, the 45-year plan, which is there was a graduating class of men from Harvard in the 50s, and they tracked these men to the age of 65, so 20 to 65 or so. And after 65 years, 1% were wealthy, 4% were financially fit, 5% were still working, 28% were dead, and 62% were dead broke. So, guys, 1% of you are going to be wealthy. And the 1% are the people who are doing the things other people aren't willing to do. They're willing to invest $100,000 in their education. They're willing to go out there and get slapped in the face selling, door to door or whatever. They're willing to take the risks of getting out of their comfort zone. They're willing to switch industries, and everybody else is not doing so hot. So it's a real wake-up call. Everybody who invests in real estate thinks they're going to be rich. But here's the real statistics. And I want everybody on this call to succeed. I want everyone to do well over the next 45 years. And that's why, I gave you those tips. Get educated, learn to sell. That's the base of the pyramid where you can work your way up to the top. But if you don't have a good base, you can't build a good pyramid. In closing, guys, we're going to close it out in a second. I love this quote from Wall Street, the movie. It's man looks into the abyss and there's nothing staring back at him. At that moment, man finds his character, and that's what keeps him out of the abyss. Lou Manheim, Wall Street. And this is the time where you're going to stare into the darkness. And this is the time where you're going to find your character, because we got 20 years ahead of hard times. This is going to be hard for 20 years. And this is time to build character. This is time to learn to be disciplined. This is the time when the strong men and strong women are going to come out, because we're forced to. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's not going to kill you, but the fear is worse than the actual thing we're afraid of, kind of like COVID. COVID right now is doing more economic damage than human health damage. And that's where the government, I think, is making errors. Now, question for people. Dave, are you there?
I am here, my friend.
Well, Dave, I'd like you to ask the people, do they want to know more?
All right, folks, let's hear. Would you like to hear more? Would you like to know more about this? Go ahead and type that in the question box just to see that you're still awake. God knows you better be awake. Yes,
Some scary stuff there.
yes. It's been good so far, but jumped in late, so don't jump in late. You got to be here on time. Yes. Wendy still wants to know what's the name again on the banking. We'll find that out in a second here, but first things first, you guys.
Okay, great. Well, if you guys want to know more, I brought an offer today. It's a very affordable offer, and I want to offer you guys Hard Times Create Strong Men, the series. Book 1 is Hard Times Create Strong Men. A lot of what we talked about tonight is in that book. Hard Times 2 is Dead Man Walking. That's it goes in a bit of a different direction, but it's how I beat cancer last year. Hard Times 3 is all about facing your demons, and Hard Times 4 is the hard times for women. So if you guys want to go grab that, it'd be much appreciated. We've got great reviews on Hard Times. It's mostly 5 stars on Amazon. And if you want to get the 4 books in paperback, we're going to ship it from my office in Winnipeg, $99. Or if you guys want the books plus the audiobooks plus the ebooks, that's $199. So I'd recommend getting the full bundle because a lot of people like to listen to their books nowadays. But it's pretty cool. It's a collector's item, a lot of these books. I change the covers from time to time. So if you end up getting this, this is certainly something that is an education for you. A lot of people pass Hard Times on to their sons, their grandfathers, their daughters, their wives. It's become viral, actually, where people who read Hard Times find that there's so much interesting information that you guys saw here tonight that they end up sharing it with everyone they know. So I guarantee you guys, you're going to love it. You're going to love the bundle, $99 or $199 for Hard Times, or Hard Times, the bundle. I will say this, my company is an online company, so we charge in US dollars. So don't be alarmed if you see a US charge. We had to do that because we pay our expenses in US, and it was eating us alive. So 99 US or 199 US, it makes a great gift, and it's a huge education. This is the stuff they don't teach you in school, and especially if you got some kids or somebody that you want to be educated on the world and how it works, this is a great bundle for anybody on the call today.
All right, you guys. So I put that link in the chat box. I already put that in the question box as well. We're going to open up for Q&A. If you're open for that, Stefan, are you willing to take some questions from the gang?
Yeah, I'm here. So let's do Q&A till it's done.
Yeah, no, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit with you, buddy.
Sure.
Just for fun, because I know you can take it. So first of all, thank you very much, and I don't think we disappointed. I'm sure you shocked a few people. I'm sure you pissed some people off. I know you probably pissed a fair number of ladies off with some of what you said there, and some sensitive guys as well. I'll just go back. So I'm remembering back to 2000, and I believe 2008, and you know the history better than I do, Stefan. So when was it that was it Bear Stearns that had that big debacle? Do you remember? Was that 2008?
Well, a lot of that nonsense was between 2008 and 2010.
Yeah,
there
well,
was bailouts and there was all sorts of packages happening.
Yeah, Linda
Sorry?
says 2008.
Okay.
So anyhow, I remember back to that because it's burned in my brain. I was working with Darren Weeks and Fast Track at that time, and we were putting on one of the super conferences. And one of the things was where everybody's excited because we were video conferencing Robert Kiyosaki in that day. And so there we were, but 500 happy Canadian real estate investors learning about real estate stuff. And then in the afternoon, we zoomed in or conferenced in Robert Kiyosaki, and it was the day after the Bear Stearns thing imploded. And he came on the video, and he looked out of sorts. He didn't look like the normal cocky, calm, cool, confident Robert Kiyosaki we're used to. He looked bedraggled. He looked frazzled. It looked like he hadn't slept. And he came on, and his message was, you guys, there's 3 G's that you need to focus on right away. And the first G is it's gold. You got to stock up on gold. This whole thing, the financial system is going to crash. Everything's going to go to shit in a wheelbarrow. Things are going to go bad. So stock up on gold. The second thing you got to stock up on is grub. So go to the grocery store, buy as much canned goods and freeze-dried goods as you can, because the whole economic system is going to collapse and grocery stores are going to stop, and it's going to be a zombie apocalypse. And the third G is guns. So go out and stock up on as many automatic weapons as you can get your hands on. Tough for you guys, for you Canadians up there. I live in Arizona, so we're good down here. But you guys get whatever you can for guns, because when the zombies come out looking for your gold and your grub, you're going to have to defend it. And that's what he saw happening at that time. Needless to say, we were all kind of in shock with our eyes wide open, and he signed off, and we tried to cheer everybody up for the rest of the day. But bottom line, it was one of these worst case scenario type outlooks, not unlike what you're talking about here today, and none of that really came true. So, are you being? I mean, what would you say to people that say, Stefan, you're being alarmist?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It was gold, guns, gas, grub, and ground. So he wanted those 5 things. And, you can be a prepper and you can go buy a bunker and you can do all that, get gasoline in a big tank and a bunch of freeze-dried meals. You could go do that. There's people doing that right now, Dave. And I said to my mother, like, I had a dream. I'm like, we should buy a gun. Like, just buy a gun. Because, when you have a gun and there's a man with a gun, he thinks twice versus you have a gun or you don't have a gun and there's a man with a gun. Well, you have to do whatever he says now, right? So, if you want to go buy a gun, sure. If you want to go buy gold, sure, it's going to hyperinflate. But the problem with gold is there's no yield.
Yeah.
Gold has no yield. It doesn't produce anything. So it's a hedge against inflation, but it doesn't produce. It in fact costs you. So, I know Kiyosaki has lots of gold, and I think everybody has a certain level of prepper where, some people put an extra loaf of bread in the freezer and say, oh, I'm prepped. And other people have a sack of potatoes behind the fridge and they say, there's my prepping. And then there's people who have bunkers and all sorts of crap, private planes and things. So, Kiyosaki, and I think everybody else was predicting the crash of the American currency. And that has been deferred so many times. It should have happened in 2008. It's been deferred so many times. We might see that now, actually. The question is, like, they deferred it for 10 more years. Trump's holding the bag now. And what's he going to do with this bag? He's got 30 trillion of debt that's coming for him. And what's he going to do? Is he going to print a $30 trillion bill and pay it off? Like, I don't know. I think nobody knows right now. And what I'm talking to you guys about is, here's what we do know. Everything in this presentation was, mostly facts of what we know in the past. And, what you can do as an investor is, well, the business has to go on. You got to keep selling. You got to keep producing, because you either do that or you go to the forest and get your guns and your gas and your grub and your ground and your guns, and you just sit there. And that's an option. And you can own the gold if you want, but I don't think you're really going to win. You're just going to watch the currency lose,
Yeah. All right. So we got some people asking, what was the name of the book on the central banking again? We've got a lot of people asking that one.
History of Central Banking by Stephen Milford. I might be wrong on the name. History of Central Banking by Stephen Milford.
All right.
And it's hard to find because it's mostly banned. And, people call him a Nazi and an anti-Semite because, he's talking about the bankers who happen to be Jewish. And it's very tricky when you start criticizing the Jewish people, because as soon as you criticize them, they pull out Schindler's List and they start playing the sad violin music and they say, you're a Nazi. So it's very, very tricky to talk about the Jewish bankers these days because they have a smokescreen protecting them.
All right, you guys, this is the time for you. If you have any questions for Stefan, any feedback, it's interesting because I thought the ladies were going to be a little bit ticked off. Linda says, no, not pissed. I just have to run for another webinar. This was amazing. There you go. All right. I'm Victoria says, no, I'm good. I'm a lady. That sounds good. So we got here, uh, if I have a government job and 3 rentals, why do you suggest, or what do you suggest to learn to sell?
Well, you could stay at your government job forever and keep your 3 rentals forever, but if you want to expand, which is, I believe, the goal of every human in life is to expand their spirit, learning to sell would be the way to get out of that government job. But the problem with a government job is you have a government philosophy, which is go home at 5 o'clock. So it's very tough to switch from a, government philosophy to a free market philosophy. And it's up to you. I mean, you can stay at the government forever. My mother did it. She's retiring. She's there for her whole life. And, the question is how rich do you want to get? How big do you want to get? How fast do you want to go? If you don't care for that, then stay at the government.
All right, perfect. Good. I am getting a little bit of pushback from some of the women on the call. So, um,
Well, feed it to me, Dave, because you know what? Women like hard times more than men. It's not, it says right on the front of the book, this isn't for women, but they actually like it more than men because it talks about all the problems and weaknesses with men. And they go, wow, this is actually brilliant. I wish I had this book years ago. So, just because I'm doing a study of men or the male culture, which drives the entire civilization, they might feel excluded, but I have the Oracle in this series, which is exclusively for women. So, women just they want to be in the club. And I said, you're not in the club. And, now they might get a little offended, but look, you got your own book called The Oracle. And a lot of women love hard times and praise it. So, have an attitude adjustment, pull up your panties and be a big girl.
so Pam's asking, so what will be the role of women now?
Well, we're going to see gender roles come back. We're going to see men be men and women be women. The harder it gets, and that's what happens in history is, if you read Will Durant's Lessons from History, it's like 5,000 years of history condensed into 100 pages. He talks about gender roles where the genders become the same and then they split. And there's a cycle of that where men and women become kind of equal, and then something like a war happens and they split into feminine women and masculine men. And so we've been having a time for the last, let's say, since the 60s, where men and women have become homogenous, where they're the same. And that's not very sexy to men. It's not very sexy to women because we want the otherness. Men want feminine women and women want masculine men. And when you go through these hard times and suddenly the men have to step up and be men and the women have to step up and be women, the gender roles come back. And we're going to see church come back. We're going to see values come back. We're going to see a lot of traditional old school things come back. Like, for example, we have a very promiscuous society right now where people are, having sex pretty much drive-through style, where you meet somebody, have sex on a first date. I guarantee you after this hard times, that's going to go back to, some sort of courtship and some sort of old school way to figure out if you want this person or not. Once you have a virus and you got COVID and you got all these problems, we're going to see gender roles come back. We're going to see families come back. We're going to see churches come back and values. And I think it's actually going to be a really nice strengthening thing because we've been smashing families and we've been smashing fathers and we've been smashing all the things that made us successful for the last 60 years. And it's going to come back. Like this happened in Poland. Poland was taken over by the Nazis, and then they were taken over by the communists. So they had double whammy hard times. And after, the thing that kept Poland alive was they brought back the churches, they brought back the family values, they brought back the gender roles, they brought back everything that was old school, and they brought back the communities. And Poland now is more prosperous than ever because they went through communism, like Russian communism, which is brutal, and they went through Nazi occupancy. So after, however many years of that, they went back to the basic values that makes humanity successful. and it's a very prosperous country. Beautiful women, strong men. It's a great place. It's nothing like here where we have purple-haired women, obese women everywhere. The average woman right now, Dave, in the United States is 171 pounds and 5'4". So that means average woman's fat, and that's just sad. If you're in your prime, why are you fat? And you go over to Poland, the girls are wearing dresses, they look nice, and they've got different values. So we're going to see the old school values come back.
All right. So we got, oh shit, sorry guys. Scroll through here. So we got a question from Corey. He says, can you tell us more on your take about hyperinflation? So real estate should keep going up in value through these tough times? Question mark?
Well, yeah, usually when there's more money being printed, it brings real estate prices up. But, the question becomes also, what are the interest rates going to be and all sorts of things. And I think we're going to see 0% and negative interest rates like Europe. So we're going to see some pretty voodoo things that we've never seen before. I have a friend who visits Switzerland, and everybody's house there is $3 million with a negative interest rate. So it costs like $1,300 to live in this $3 million house, the regular house, and somehow it's $1,300 to live there because the interest is negative. So we're going to see all sorts of crazy things where, probably you'll see real estate values go up, but, it doesn't matter because the cheeseburger will be $6 instead of $2. And that's what happens with the inflation is everything goes up and you're not really getting ahead, but, real estate hedges that inflation.
You know what? I actually, one of the big things living in Mexico and Central America for 14 years is I've seen this stuff firsthand. I've seen hyperinflation. I've seen devaluation. I've seen controlled devaluation and uncontrolled devaluation of currencies. Kind of got used to it, actually. It's something we haven't really experienced yet here. But when it happens, it really is kind of what you were talking about there, Stefan. You start to see a much more drastic difference between the haves and the have-nots. Becomes much more accentuated. People that have assets, the people that have something more solid than their local currency to fall back on. Hell, I was in Mexico over Christmas time, where the value of the Mexican peso literally fell in half over just over a 1 week period. So at the time I was not really thinking much about it, but it was like, wow, because I've got American traveler's checks, I just doubled the value of bang for my buck. But I mean, think about the locals, how that affected them. They just, their net worth just got chopped in half. Their income just got chopped in half. It was crazy times. And it happens.
Well, and that's the thing, Dave. The people who work for money get destroyed in hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Like if you're out there working and trading labor for money, you're destroyed. But if you're somebody, selling goods and services, you just increase the price.
Yeah. Okay. So good question there, Corey. Thanks for that. Good question here from Danielle. She says, how do you suggest dealing with a spouse who's not in the same mindset of expanding and preparing for opportunities that are coming?
Well, number one, get him a copy of Hard Times to read, and that'll man him up a bit. Number two, there's three types of spouses. There's the spouse who's in the trenches with you and supportive. Second type of spouse is the one that's not in the trenches but stays home, makes your dinner, and is supportive. And the third type of spouse is the one that's not supportive and works against you. And usually that spouse has to go. So I would get him a copy of Hard Times. I'd say, read this. And I'd say, honey, there's three types of spouses. I need you to be two of the three. Which one do you want? Because the third one, if you're not on board, I don't know if we're actually spouses.
All right. Something told me you're going to say that.
Well, Dave, I've done a lot of coaching and marriage counseling, and it comes down to, your dream versus a suppressive person who's stopping you from reaching your potential in this life. And there's no reason to suppress anybody. Like, nobody has a reason for that. It's just fear. It's just, being an asshole and ego on their end. And I don't know if you want to be married to that type of person anyways. So, at the end of the day, I'm a huge, huge, huge supporter of marriage and marriage for life. But if you're married to the wrong person, it's going to ruin your life and get worse over 10, 20, 30 years. You're going to get sick. You're going to look uglier. You're going to be less happy. You're going to have less sex and less money. It's not worth it if you got the wrong guy or wrong girl. Figure it out, but you need someone supportive if you're doing this.
That brings back a memory, right? When I was going through my divorce, at that time I was doing interviews for our newsletter program. You probably remember that, Stefan. And I happened to interview two successful couples back to back, 2 days apart. And so I did the normal interview about real estate and whatever. And then because I was just going through this separation thing, I asked them both their secret to success with their relationships. And amazingly, these couples didn't know each other, and they didn't have any, but they had the exact same answers. And bottom line, it boiled down to three things. And one couple said they had the 3 C's to a successful relationship. The first C was communication. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And that meant that they do the Stephen Covey thing, right? They seek first to understand and then be understood. So they really dug in deep to understand the other person. The second C was compromise. And I said, what does that mean to you? That means, well, we realized early on that sometimes, neither one of us can get our way. And sometimes we have to come up with a solution that neither one of us is thrilled with, but we can both live with. So we have to compromise. It's not giving in to the other person, it's finding a way to work through it that works for both of us. Okay, awesome. I didn't have that either. And the third one was commitment. I said, okay, what does that mean? They said, well, obviously commitment to one another, but just as important is commitment towards a common goal. So that was what you were referring to as being both in the trenches together. And these couples, they were working together, they're happy together, they're successful, they'd gone through personal tragedies that would break up other marriages, and they were stronger than ever. So yeah, that definitely, that stuck with me after that forever. That's for sure.
Yeah, a common goal. There's nothing sexier than that. I mean, you'll have the best sex ever when you smash a common goal together. It's the best thing you could ever do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So next things we got here. So just some, how will rents be affected with so many people losing their jobs? What do you think?
Well, there's EI, so the government's supporting them. And my brother's girlfriend, who's a waitress, actually got more money from the program than she was making. So, there's government programs, there's EI. I think there's going to be some assholes pretending they don't have any money, but the government in Canada, like, this is the best country to be poor in. There's all these subsidies for people who lose their jobs. So that's going to be good for months, unless they run out of money, but the government just prints. So I don't think that it's a real thing. Like, 500,000 people applied for EI when COVID lockdown started, and they normally get 20,000 a day. So I think it's mostly covered.
All right, perfect. So we got somebody saying they're having trouble ordering the $99 bundle. So if there's customer service issues, Stefan, what should they do?
Put up an email, support at
Okay,
black.
Give me a second here. So, sorry guys. Support
at black card, the letter U like university.com.
Okay. Send that to everybody. Support at blackcardu.com, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, guys, sorry about that. A little technical glitch. Next question. Okay, I want to move back to the Gulf. Something from Canada. What's Stefan's take on GCC economy moving forward?
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either. Okay, let's see. How much do you think the prices for real estate will drop and how long will it last?
It's going to be case by case basis. You're going to look for weak vendors. Some real estate won't drop at all, and then some of it depends on who owns it. If they don't have any money, it's going way down. And if they have lots of money, it's staying up. So I don't think there's going to be a systematic drop. It's going to be a case by case drop.
Okay, good questions, you guys. Okay, so
the other thing, Dave, is interest rates are going down, so you're going to see some stuff go up. So it's screwed up because the interest rates go down, which brings the prices up because more people can buy, but at the same time, there's more people hurting and have to jump out.
all right, just a quick update, you guys. So Ronnie from your office is on the line here, Stefan. So we've got his direct email. You guys can email him. He'll get you sorted out. Is there a phone number that we can put in here, you guys, if you want to call your order in? So Ron, if you're willing to take.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe ask Ronnie. He can put a phone number there.
Yeah, go for it, Ronnie. Put in a phone number. We'll get people calling in. So here, Natasha's clarifying. What does Stefan feel about the economy of the Gulf countries like Saudi, Kuwait, those kind of places moving ahead?
Well, Saudi's got lots of oil. I mean, they sit there, they got tons of oil, and that's why oil's $30 a barrel. Iran is the last standing country next to Israel. I think there's going to be some fighting over there. And everybody else is pretty much blown up. I mean, they blew everybody up. Israel and America has destroyed a lot of those countries over there. And it's it's kind of too bad because that's real suppressive. But at the end of the day, the Saudis are rich. They're always rich. They got lots of oil. And Iran is like the last holdout over there. So I think there's going to be some conflict with Iran, but the Saudis are rich and they just sit there.
Okay, guys, if you're trying to order this and the link isn't working, here's a phone number that you can call in. I put it in the question box. It should be available to everyone. So it's
and Dave, let them email in too if they want to email, because I don't know what the phone lines are like there at the office. Like I know I got 8 guys tonight working, but I don't know what the phone lines are like. So if they want to email in, I guess it's pretty shitty that those links aren't working, or if they are, that's great. But I know people always have trouble with e-commerce from time to time.
No, I think the $99 link isn't working properly, unfortunately. So if you're watching this as a replay, it will be working by the time you watch it. But for you guys on live, I'm sorry that it's not working properly. Okay. So Pam's asking, what kind of professions will not survive in your opinion? What you talked about? You talked about the candle stores. All the frivolous it probably isn't going to make it. And what's your take?
If they get their e-commerce together, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The question is, how fast can these guys get online? If they can't get online, they're done.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot of restaurants close. We're going to see, right now in Winnipeg, there's a couple of restaurants just playing skip the dishes, Uber Eats, DoorDash. They're probably making money hand over fist. And then everybody else who's not on that program or delivery right now is cooked. So it's going to be a lot of local businesses, a lot of places maybe that are more specialty and aren't e-commerce. This is the time to convert to e-commerce. And, a lot of people are trying to make that conversion fast. And I'll tell you, it took me $150,000 of losses. It took me several years to figure out e-commerce. And we're sitting here with a broken link tonight still not figured out. So, you know, it's really sad. Oh, by the way, they can maybe go to my store too, and they can maybe buy the books at the store. StephanArnio.com/store. That's another option. But yeah, we got companies. Anybody who's not converting into the future right now, we're going to see entire industries go out. You know, so this is serious stuff. And you know, like my company, Black Card, we gave up on seminars years ago because I realized people didn't want to gather, and instead we do phone sales and we do e-commerce, and we're just fine. Like, we've just been chugging along, doing fine. And you know, anything traditional or old school right now is going to get challenged. It's going to get questioned. And I think you're going to see a ton of restaurants go down, a ton of shops. A lot of the small places are going to get wiped out. And if you're not on e-commerce, you're dead.
So Melvin says he lives in Winnipeg. He'd like to swing by your house and buy buy a copy of the book directly from you. I don't think that's going to work, Melvin, but nice try. Okay. So Natasha's got lots of good questions here. So he says, hey, Dave, what about stock market and stocks to invest in? Ford, Bitcoin, where does Stefan see that going?
On Bitcoin and stocks?
And Ford, yeah, stocks in general, I guess.
Well, stocks, I mean, that's fear and greed. So we're going to see, I think we're going to see stocks down for a long time. Lots of bargains, probably some bankruptcies. And we're going to see, you know, I think there's going to be some transformations and probably some too big to fails happening. Like, you know, my friend bought BP, British Petroleum. Well, that's a company that's so big that it can't really fail. So, you know, with stocks, I think there's money to be made, and they're going to be down for a long time. But I think you can make a ton of money in stocks right now. It's kind of like 2008. And then Bitcoin, I don't like Bitcoin. There's nothing I like about it. I looked at it a bit. It doesn't store value well. It doesn't transfer value. And I would say it's not even an asset. So, you know, people argue with me all the time about it. But Bitcoin, when we started crashing with stocks, was not a safe haven like people thought it was. So I think that, you know, if you're going to do something, unless you're a Bitcoin expert and you're a Bitcoin billionaire, I think there's better things to invest in.
All right. So you guys, specific stock pick recommendations. This is not the call for that. Plus, Stefan, you know, do your own research. I think I guess probably the big takeaway you should probably have from tonight's presentation is think for yourself, for Christ's sake. I mean, Stefan has taken years and years and years. I mean, he's one of the most well-read people I know. I mean, I've got at least 20 years on the guy, I think. And he's read way more. I'm a pretty good reader, and he's read way more than I have. He's a voracious learner. He synthesizes what he learns, what he reads, and he comes to his own conclusions. So he synthesized this in these books. If you want to pick Stefan's brains, read the darn books, for crying out loud. Take the synthesis of the God knows how many books this guy's read and how much research he's done to come up with his own outlook on life and his own opinions about things, and he's put them in these books. That's the ultimate shortcut, you guys, if you're looking for a shortcut. So Stefan,
yeah, Dave, let me say this about stocks. Let me say this about stocks. I had an extra $100,000 kicking around.
Yeah.
And when the stocks crashed, I opened a stock account. I was going to put $100,000 into 10 different stocks and play with my friend who's a stock expert over in the UK. And, you know, instead I put my $100,000 with some other money, and I got $300,000 to get me $5.8 million of real estate with 50% debt. So, you know, I said to myself, why am I investing in stocks when I'm so much better at real estate? I have the expertise in real estate. And if I can buy 5.8 million of real estate for $300,000 down with, you know, a cash flow of 22,000 once it's running, I should buy that instead of buying these stupid stocks. Because the stocks, maybe I'm going to make like 100% over the year, but you do the math, $300,000 into 5.8 million with, let's say, 2.8 million of equity and cash flow, 22,000 a month. That's a way better deal than dicking around with some cruise lines that you don't control and can go out of business.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap things up here. I want to thank Stefan. Thank you very much, my friend. I'm pretty impressed. I thought we were going to kick up a bit more of a beehive with some of your outlook and your comments, but I haven't gotten too many angry responses yet. So I think people were open to listening to what you have to say, and I appreciate that, everybody. And Stefan, thank you for calling it the way you see it and not whitewashing stuff and not trying to be politically correct and just telling us your truth.
Well, thank you. And the truth is the truth. And I think that's why we don't get very much backlash. It's funny. I post up my book, Money People Deal, How to Make Money on the Internet. People get violent about it. Oh my God, it's a scam. That's bullshit. It doesn't work. And then I post Hard Times. People read it. I have zero negativity about it. Anybody who reads Hard Times is 0% negative because everything in there is grounded by facts. I got sources. I got charts. I'm backing it all up. And when you read the reviews on Amazon, let's say, it's all 5 stars. And everybody goes, you know what, I was offended or I didn't agree, but he's right. And I don't care to be right, but at the end of the day, I would love to educate you, open your mind, illuminate you, and help you see the future.
Gotta love it. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for putting together this presentation. Thank you so much for making this bundle available to folks that want to take it to the next level. Thank you for, being you. We've known each other for a long time, and I appreciate your wisdom, your insight, the research that you put into it. I don't always agree with you, but I always respect what you've got to say. So thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in, and take care. God bless and stay safe. And we'll talk to you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.